Welcome everyone to another Wednesday night. The Fundamentals to Gain Inner Peace with your host, Coach Menachem Bernfeld. The story my mind tells and who I really am. We're learning, we're observing, we're noticing, we're getting to see what's going on in our mind, what are the stories we tell ourselves. And when you get this concept, it can be a game changer, the beginning of many different endeavors. You can actually change the way if you want to see any change in your life. It all starts by noticing how we want to change our circumstance, but usually it starts with us, the way we look at our situation, our story. So it's exciting to learn this stuff, to see it. So everyone has a story. Everyone, you can look around your life. We all have things we deal with, ups and downs, things we like or we don't. We all have different situations. So it's important, stop for a moment and think, what does my life look like? Where am I? What am I feeling? What's going on? What am I dealing with? And I don't think, it's part of life. But being able to stop and notice, that's step number one. And by paying attention and noticing, we can make life a little bit easier. And then maybe make a choice. Maybe we can choose once we realize how much of it is in our mind, how much of it is the story that we tell ourselves. And we can always question, say, maybe not. So here we are. Okay. Let's get started. Before we start, let's get grounded. so it can be easier for us to notice what's going on. Okay, just by taking a deep breath, feet on the floor, just feel the chair you're sitting on or the bed you're laying on, the support you have. Take a deep breath and just come into the room. Here we are. Notice your body, what you feel. Notice where your attention is. And if you have a hard time noticing, just notice that. Even if you feel scattered, if you're noticing that you're scattered, that means you're noticing. Great job. And we're not trying to fix anything. No changes. Just to be able to take a deep breath and feel, what's going on? Where am I? That's exactly what we're doing. That's what we're talking about, is just noticing. Notice. And it might be a story you're telling yourself. Maybe you're telling yourself, I am too scattered. Maybe. Just gentle notice. What am I feeling? And what's the story that I'm telling myself in my mind? Okay, deep breath in and out, and here we are. So our mind always creates stories, and that's the way we work. What's going on? Who's coming? What do I have to do? Is it working out? This is how we work. And for many, or for beginners, it will be strange to say, it's your story. What do you mean it's my story? This is what's going on. It's a fact. It's what's going on. So it feels like truth. But again, we're learning that they're thoughts. And then eventually we can look at the thought and say, what's it saying? So if you don't see the story, if you're not noticing the thought, then you become the story. It becomes you. And then you're asking, this is me. Exactly. It feels like this is who I am. But we're learning to take a deep breath, slow down, and just observe. And that's why good idea, I recommend many times, whether it's journaling, just write down what's in your mind. What's the thought? I don't have time to journal. I'm busy. Write that down. It's a thought. Or sitting for 5 minutes quiet, you'll see how hard it is because of all those thoughts. But that's where it starts. You start seeing what's going on in my mind. All of those thoughts. And tonight we're practicing just to see the story without judgment, without pushing it away, without changing it, just to see it. So here's an example. Your child ignores you. What does your mind say? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? They don't respect me. Hmm. Yeah, it's on purpose. You start having that whole story in your head. But again, just notice the story. We don't know what's going on in the child's head. We don't know what's going on, what's their motives. But for you, just realize what story you're telling yourself. And then you can tell yourself, I'm noticing, I'm having the thought that I'm noticing that I'm having the thought they don't respect me. Just notice. So it becomes you observe it. You start observing the thoughts. So that's step number one. That's just being able to notice the thought that comes up. And once you notice, you're creating space between you and the thought. It removes some pressure just by seeing it. That means you're not the story, it's a story. You can see it. It helps you instead of taking it in and being it, you can look at it. Imagine looking at a screen in front of you, and you're seeing me, or you're seeing the thought. Just look at its screen, all the thoughts that's going on in your head, put it on that screen and observe it, watch it. We don't have to change it. No need to change the thought. Just see it, see what comes up. And then eventually it gives you that space to give you, you can choose, like we discussed, we can choose to change it. But as of now, we're learning to notice, just noticing. Here's another example. Instead of saying, I am a failure, for whatever reason, what happens in a day, sometimes things don't work out, and we could be walking around with the story saying, I'm such a failure. I'm failing. So we change that to, I'm noticing I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. Mm, wow, just look at that. And it might take time. When you have that trigger, like we discussed, many times the trigger is so fast that we don't have the space and the time to even look at it. But when we learn to slow down and observe, when you get triggered, so you can see what's that first initial thought, and then say, "I'm having the thoughts." Ah, I am having that thought. So beautiful. So let's make it a little bit more experiential. So let's take a moment and take a deep breath and think of a moment in your day. What's going on? Just think of a situation that didn't work out the way you wanted. It's not going your way. And let's make this more practical. Okay, so come up with something if you want, you can share. You don't have to, you can just write it down. So going back to a situation in your day that did not work out, or at least didn't work out the way you wanted, and notice what your mind said about it. What's the story? What's your mind saying? And you can write it down. And many times you might know exactly what it's saying because you live with it already for a while. Or it might take time just to see, what am I saying? What am I telling myself? What's the story? Beautiful. And now you can add the phrase, "I'm noticing that I'm having the thought," whatever thought you had. Just notice. Whatever thought comes up, you're actually noticing that you're having that thought. I am noticing that I'm self-conscious. I am noticing that I want to do things perfect. And if I don't even start. I'm noticing the thought that I'm a failure. Beautiful. That's all you have to do is change the line. And just let's go inside, see how that feels. When you add that line, I'm noticing I'm having the thought. What comes up? You can take a deep breath and notice. Instead of being that and living, being part of the story, you can see it from the outside. You can zoom out and see the story. Beautiful. So you can let me know in the chat what feeling comes up after you actually allow yourself to observe, allow yourself to say, "I'm noticing, I'm having that thoughts." Beautiful. I'm noticing that it's hard for me to say I am noticing for whatever reason. Just notice it might be something that sounds silly. What do you mean I'm noticing? This is my life. This is my story. Beautiful. Just notice that. See, and once we can learn to notice what's going on, we can slow down, take a deep breath, and observe. Eventually, you'll be in control instead of living the way your mind works. And we know, we have these stories many times. They can be from, childhood, the stuff that we pick up, and we might think this is a fact. I'm good at this. I'm not good at that. Who told you? What do you mean? That's what I see. It's fact. Okay, let's talk about it. Did you ever try? Try it out. Well, the first time it's not going to work. You don't expect it to work the first time. But I'm just saying, realize that it might take time to tell yourself that I'm noticing, and it's not actually you. And eventually you can choose. Maybe the things you're doing is just because they told you that this is what you have to do, but you might want to do something else. Beautiful. Here's another example. I'm noticing I'm having the thought that no one listens to me. What do you mean? It's a thought? It's actually happening. No one is listening to me. Hmm. So let's notice. I'm noticing I'm having the thought that nothing ever gets better. Wow. Imagine walking around with that story. How do you feel? I speak to many people, I'll tell them just change it a little bit. First you notice and then start, giving me some feedback of little change. And they're like, nothing ever changes. A little change, find something small. And eventually, instead of walking around with nothing ever gets better, you can slowly see that, wait a second, okay, there's some movement, something going on. I'm noticing I'm having the thought that I should be doing more. Yeah, we discussed that many times. You have that feeling no matter what you do, I'm not doing enough. I should be doing more. Yes, amazing. So the moment you can notice, you become bigger than that. You're the one that's noticing. You're the one that's able to see it from the outside, which is amazing. Okay, so what comes up? What's coming up when you hear me talking about these concepts? Something that you can use, or maybe not. What's the story you're walking around with, maybe for many years? What's the story your mind is telling you? What's the story you believe is you? And then notice what changes when you add I notice. Okay, beautiful. I guess we'll have time for questions. Basically, for this week, homework. Every time you feel stressed, every time you feel a trigger, every time you feel something come up, first you notice, and then you say, I am noticing I'm having the thought. You notice the thought that comes up, and then you can look at it. And again, for beginners, it might take time just to be able to see it. But eventually it can become you become used to it. You become used to noticing what's going on. Okay, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, you can put it in the chat. My kids never listen to me, I'm failing as a parent. Wow, that's a story. That is a story. And you might say, come to my house, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But no matter what's going on, it's still a story. Walking around with the belief that my kids never listen to me, I'm failing as a parent. Let's add, I am noticing I'm having the thought that I'm failing as a parent. Just notice. Now we're not going to go into the facts if it's true or not. I'm not doing that tonight. We're just noticing. And look what happens when you notice. Just be aware of what happens. What happens when you actually notice the thoughts. I can't handle everything. It's too much work. It's too much work. Wow, how does that feel? I can't handle it. It's too much work. You might be feeling that way at work. There's so much work they're throwing on you. I just can't handle it. Beautiful. It could be it's true, it could be it's not. But first, let's start that it's a story and it's a thought. So let's add. Let's add. I am noticing. You see what happens when you add I am noticing? It could be it's true, it could be it's not. But first, look at it. I'm noticing I'm having the thought that it's too much work for me. What does that make you feel? I feel like it's annoying to say that again and again. Hmm, that's a story. You don't have to say it again and again. You can just notice. Just notice, but it helps you eventually realize that part of or most of what's going on is just this thought that you're telling yourself. So you start walking around like observing. So good morning. You wake up in the morning. You might have a certain way you wake up every day, maybe in a good mood or not. And then you start noticing, I'm noticing my thoughts. I feel Hashem is disappointed with me. There you go. There you go. There's a story. I wonder where that comes from. But let's first notice. That's step number one. Just notice the thought. I'm noticing I'm having a thought that Hashem is disappointed in me. Just a thought. And I would, eventually ask you where it's coming from. Why do you think so? But first, realize it's just a thought. Is it fact? That's a great question. How do we find out? How would you know what's the fact? What do you mean? That's how I feel. Beautiful. As long as you're adding, that's how I feel. That's what I'm thinking. So then we can talk because it's coming from somewhere. You don't know the fact, especially when we're talking about Hashem. I would argue, but not now. First, I want to notice. Just notice. Notice you're walking around with that thought and look around. Look around your day, what it looks like. Look around how you show up when you have that thought. You probably don't like the way you show up because that's the thought that just pulls you away from a lot of things. And any of these stories that we tell ourselves, whether it's too much work, not good enough, failing as a parent, how do you show up? When your kids are around, do you think you're a failing parent? How do you show up? You're going to show up that way. So you're living a story, you're believing the story because you're so used to it. I don't know how many years you're saying it already. And that's exactly how you show up. And that's exactly how you act. And I'm sure you're not satisfied of what's going on around you. So let's start from step one. Step number one is first realizing it's a story and I can observe it. I can notice it. First, notice your stories. Beautiful. I think it's important to notice without judging yourself. Yes, 100%. There's no judging, there's no right or wrong. It's just looking at the story. Where am I? Why do I feel a certain way? What's going on in my mind? What's the thought? No right or wrong. Just notice. Beautiful. Okay, so that's it for tonight. Thank you very much, and thank yourself. And when you notice, thank yourself. When you slow down, you might even notice thoughts that you're telling yourself about other people in the room. When you see somebody walk in a room, just notice what comes up. What's the story you're telling yourself? What's your belief about that person? Notice, just notice. And smile. There's no right or wrong. You might want to change it, but not for now. For now, you just want to notice. So for this week, if you find time, whether it's journaling, sit down for a few minutes and just breathe, focus on your breath. And what that helps is to notice our thoughts. So once we start noticing our thoughts, we can add, I notice. And then it creates that space between me and my thoughts, me and my story. And then hopefully, eventually, in Mitzvah Hashem, we will be able to choose or we can ask ourselves, is that true or not? Do I want to walk around with that story, or maybe create a new story? Because it's all what we picked up. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining. And again, we're going to do it from now on 8:30. Hope that works for you. And if not, you can all listen to the recordings. Any questions, comments, coachmenachem@gmail.com. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.